chairman of the Bush campaign here. And in fact, it's surprising that we're now on our 5th judge who's recused themselves because of conflicts of interest, that she doesn't. I'm astonished. This could not happen in Pennsylvania, where I'm from. And what we're going to do is not disenfranchise these people. We're going to make certain that they, in fact, get the right to vote, and their vote counts. And for this to have occurred, and our statistical people, by the way, came to the conclusion that of the Buchanan vote, more than 2,000 clearly would have gone to Vice President Gore. Of the 19,000 votes that were declared invalid, more than half of them would have, the substantial majority would have gone to Vice President Gore, and that's just in West Palm Beach County. So I think something has to be done in Florida. My own feeling is that from being here now in the midst of all this and seeing how upset the people are, that they need to have a complete re-vote of the people who voted in the election in the county. And that's
Steve,
the answer,
Steve,
and I think that challenged...
Steve, let me interrupt you for just a second.
Yes.
I want to go to Glenn Ivey, who's here with me in Washington. Glenn, what we're really talking about is the notion of how do we make sure that each person's vote counts and counts correctly. What is your response on that? We've heard from what your Republican counterpart has said. Well,
I think the goal is to have the recount votes move forward in Broward County and Palm Beach County and others. Mr. Schiller was talking about some separate issues, I think, which leading to a revote, I think, is unlikely. But I think the goal for the Democrats is to have the recount move forward and see how it turns out.
Roger, on this question of a revote and whether or not there was a confusing ballot, there is a clear principle in election law, and I practiced election law for 10 years, which says if there's an irregularity in the form of the ballot, and it could be caught before the election, you have a duty to raise it before the election, and if you don't raise it before the election, you lose it forever. And Florida case law is actually very clear on that. That's also the case law across the country. So to the degree that there's an argument that this ballot was confusing or that it was in fact not properly ordered with the candidates in the right order, there was a legal duty on the part of the parties to raise that before the election, and if they didn't raise it before the election, they lose it forever.
Steve Scheller, the argument is that you should have raised, your client should have raised this before the election. How do you respond?
There's no opportunity to look at that ballot. The ballot that was given out to the public did not have the spots on it where you vote, and that's the problem. No one had the opportunity, and I can tell you, my mother-in-law is one of those people. The people in Palm Beach County who I represent, they're not going to tolerate your kind of legal opinion. What's right is right. This is the United States of America. This is
well, we like to think that the United States of America is based on the law.
We're not going to let you steal this election. It's about time that you finally got around to saying Bush is a uniter. That's what he said in the campaign, and so far he's doing nothing to unite anybody.
Steve, let's get one thing clarified. Where was this sample ballot posted, and why is it different, in your view, from what the voters actually saw?
It was posted in the local newspapers, and it had the names. The sample ballot that we saw, that is out there, had the names all in order, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, not on two sides. There was no butterfly ballot posted, and there were no punch holes posted in the sample ballot that was posted to notify the public of the ballot.
What about that, Congressman? It doesn't sound like from what he says that there really was notice.
Ahead of time.
Right.
People went in and walked in and punched it in various election offices ahead of the election in absentee balloting. Of course they saw it ahead of time. It was also published in the paper.
But wait a second, Congressman.
But who saw it
apparently it wasn't, Congressman. Congressman, there are two issues. I think what Steve, and let's get this corrected, Steve says is that the ballot that was published in the newspaper was different from what was shown at the polling booth.
Absolutely.
But what I want to make the point is, Greta.
Go ahead, Congressman.
The point I want to make is that this ballot and these machines, the butterfly machines, were actually used in absentee voting by people who walked in and voted absentee early, physically voted absentee early.
But
and it was also shown to Democrats.
But that doesn't matter for people that came in and voted on the election day. For example, the people that I spoke to in Palm Beach, they didn't vote absentee in advance. They came on election day, and they didn't have any opportunity before the election to object. So I think that's the question. I don't know that this is where the challenge is ultimately going to go. I think it's going to be the recount, but I think it's a fair complaint that the parties have.
I agree. It is ultimately going to be what ballots are recounted.
Let me interrupt everybody. We're going to go to Lou Waters down in Atlanta. Lou?